Hi folks, this is a recording of our feature presentation from the Hamilton International Middle School PTSA meeting on May 8, 2025. This presentation is led by guest speaker Katie MacPherson and joined by panelists including 2 high school students and Hamilton school leaders. Due to technical issues, we're joining the meeting in progress.
As well as Dr. Marshall, and then Ms. Brewer hopefully will be able to join as we move along. So, all right, back to Katie.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. So I think I need, yeah, okay, I just need that to go away and I'll share my screen. Here we are. Can everybody see my screen? Yes. Okay. I'm just going to run through a few slides and thank you, Lori, for the Molly and Lori for the nice introduction. I'm actually this beautiful curtain behind me. I'm actually in Miami. I spoke to 1,200 middle school students here today, so I'm all over the place. So glad to be with you in Seattle tonight. I do work for BARC, and as Molly and Lori said, we're one of the companies out there just trying to do our best to protect students and educate parents and faculty and administrators on the latest and greatest things that are going on with our students. So I will show this QR code again, but it's an opt-in. We do a once a month email about what is the latest thing? What are the current trends? I just got a letter from our school district where my children attend about the latest TikTok challenge, Smoke Your Laptop, which I don't even know what to say about that. But kids are always coming up with trends and wonderful ideas that are sometimes not as appropriate as we want it to be. So we keep on top of those things for you. I will send these slides also to Matt, Molly, and Lori so they can share them with you. But if you're interested in just sort of keeping on top of the latest and greatest things, that's what we have for you. BARC used to be just an app. We started about 10 years ago with an app that surveils and monitors and alerts parents to safety issues. So you sync the app to your phone, sync it to your child's phone, and we run in the background of their text, their email, their social media. We can get into most companies except for Snapchat, which is unfortunate because we know a lot of kids use Snapchat. But you get to choose what you want to know about. For example, we alert in profanity, cyberbullying, predation, drugs and alcohol. So if your child is having conversations about those things, it's not that you're reading every single thing that they're saying and they don't have any privacy, but what BARC tries to do is just to alert you to like, hey, the friendship group is talking about something that you might want to know about. Here's a snippet of what student A said. Here's a snippet of what student B said. We do location check-in. With the prevalence of pornography and illicit photos that are being sent by students or to students, we also do what we call image stop. So if someone tries to send a nude image to a student or a student is sending it to someone else, we will stop the image from being received or sent. So excitingly, last year we unveiled the BARC phone and the BARC watch. So instead of having to download an app onto each phone, now it's baked into a watch, which is really great for little kids, typically between 8 and 12, 8 and 13, use the watch to call, text, check in, and also the alerts are on the watch as well. And then we have a Samsung phone. So if you're not aware about phones, there are a few baby dumb phones on the market, and all of those are Android phones because Androids are actually the safest phone out there. So those are some things that BARC does. Tonight is really about digging into what's actually going on. I'm so thrilled that there are actual real human teenagers here to give their perspective. I think it's really important. Often we sit around as adults and do these things without inviting kids. So thank you, ladies, for being here. These are 2 of my favorite books. I'm sure you've probably heard of The Anxious Generation. It's a new release last March that's sort of taken the country by storm. And then one of my other favorite books is The Self-Driven Child, which is an absolute mandatory read, I think, for anybody, especially with the 6th through 12th grader. So I always like to give resources. Tonight is really about, getting on the same page, listening to these fine young people talk about how hard this is to have phones and what it takes away from them, but also the positive messaging around it. What I find in my travels are there are a couple of different kinds of digital parents. You've got the restrictor that's like, we're not doing any of this, which is actually pretty fine with me. But then you have sort of the enabler that's like, he's a good kid. I'll just give him everything and hope for the best. Those, we need to maybe have some conversations. And then the mentor is really sitting down and getting to know this stuff. The best teachers are your children. They are so genius. They're 25,000 miles ahead of us. I would not try to keep up with them. A bunch of the moms here in Miami today were like, how do I find their burner accounts? How do I find their spam accounts? I'm like, don't even try. Like they have like 10 accounts. Like that's not where I want parent energy to be spent. So I really want kids to know about digital footprints as they create their own. So we have taken thousands of photos of them before they hit age 2. By the time they're 12, I don't even know how many. We've created a digital footprint for them in which they had no permission. And so once they get their own device and they start taking photos and they start posting things on social media, that is their digital footprint. And if they are college bound, if they want to get a job after high school, if they want to go into the military, many of our middle school and high school students have things on their platforms that would automatically, literally disqualify them from getting into school. And so we have to have some talks with them on an ongoing basis and really get to know these platforms really well, backwards and forwards. So I don't have a ton of time tonight to dig into like how childhood has changed. I am sending these slides, so feel free to refer back to them. But a lot has changed since we were kids. And I think we have to give these kids a huge celebratory hug for some of the massive stressors that are in their life that we didn't have to face. We certainly didn't have to worry about school shootings and training for them. We were allowed to go out and rough and tumble play almost 2 or 3 times a day when I was in elementary school. And a lot of those things have been restricted in the name of academics, which I'm a huge fan of rigor in academics, but I'm also a huge fan of moving bodies. And so in this pursuit of keeping kids safe, we've sort of taken away going outside and free play and coming home at dusk because we feel like the world is unsafe. And that is just not true, to be honest with you. When you look at violent crime stats, when you look at things like stranger abductions, I am sure in your area there probably has never been a stranger abduction. There may have been like a custodial, thing going on with divorced parents. But by and large, in my travels, I look those things up, and the fear that we have about people that harm children, our fear is sort of displaced on the wrong people. Most of the people that harm students are people we know. 93% of them actually between family, which is 34%, and then unfortunately people like pastors and camp leaders and counselors and educators and coaches are the other 57, 59% of that. And so 93% of the people that are harming children are actually people that we know, and only 7% are strangers or people online. And so we have to get really clear about safety. Phones have been the answer for a long time. 33% of third grade parents buy a phone for their child, and the reason they do that is for safety reasons. One of the most unsafe things that we can do is hand a phone to an 8-year-old that has untethered access to the internet. And so now with these sort of baby dumb phones, there's kind of no excuse for us to be handing over an untethered access iPhone. And so again, sort of this safety thing, what I can tell you, and I think your administration would back me up because I met them a few years ago, phones don't save lives. What saves lives are kids that are trained with situational awareness, whether they're at school or at the mall or at the movie theater, training your family and yourself what to do in an emergency. We've seen over and over, especially I'll point to the unfortunate school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Those children had phones and they were calling the police, and the police came, but the police did not come into the room where the shooter was. And so they would have been better served putting down the phones, jumping out the window and running across the playground. And so we have to get really clear about why are we handing phones over and what do we mean by this thing is going to keep you safe, because it's really unfortunately kind of a selfish thing that we're saying like you need me to help you, when we want our kids to be confident and confident that they can actually do this on their own with the trusted adults at school or wherever they may be. And we know that unfortunately these things happen outside of school as well. I've talked a little bit about digital footprints. I shared with the high school and middle school students here in Miami today. Once you get social media, what you post can be semi-permanent. And so you have to really look at your platform and make sure that it's shiny and responsible. I really encourage middle school and high school student parents to really start looking at LinkedIn, and especially by like junior year, having your child have a LinkedIn that's private for a few years, but by mid-junior year, I really want, if somebody were to Google your child, the first thing to come up to be a really responsible platform and a really responsible sort of profile of who they are and what they have to offer. I have talked about and we have watched a trailer before of Childhood 2.0. So for time's sake, I'm not going to do that tonight. But if you have not seen the documentary Childhood 2.0, please, please, please watch it this summer. It's about an hour and a half. What I love about it is there's real kids in it talking about this is what it's like to have a phone. This is what it's like to have social media. Yes, strangers are talking to me online. Yes, strangers are trying to send me things. Yes, I've met people in chat rooms that I shouldn't. It's a really keen insight into what is going on with our kids. So I'm really excited to hear from the girls tonight. Childhood 2.0, you can find that on YouTube for free. And then lastly, just really making sure that we remember that these brains are not fully developed. So you're going to see your kids make digital mistakes, and that's okay, because you want those things to happen under the roof of the school and the roof of your home so you can guide and navigate things while the stakes are really low. Middle school is sort of what I call the last best place to practice before things really count in high school, and high school is the last best place to practice before stakes get higher. They're over 18. We can't always sort of save them from themselves. So just really recognizing that, full brain development doesn't happen for our boys until well into the early 30s, and for our girls, mid 22 to 24 range. And so a lot of what you're going to see in middle school and high school, you might see impulsive behavior, you might see decisions that don't make sense to you. They're not supposed to, because that brain is still developing. So I'll shut up now and pass it on to the next person. But thank you so much for being here tonight. And I'm so honored to be a part.
Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Katie, thank you so much. I hope you're a master at helping conversations, so I hope you will continue joining us for the remaining, conversations and some Q&A at the end. Hey, do me a favor with Q&A, just if you can, everybody's got paper and pens or pencils at their desks or at home. If you could just jot your Q&A down, we'll do that at the end. Right now, we're going to jump to our panelists, our junior high school panelists. And I'm going to start with, there's one slide we're going to pull up. Yeah, give us 1 second. Yeah, we're just going to go down to a little bit past, a little bit more. 24. Next one. Yeah, one more. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to first, we're going to start welcoming Dorothea again. Thank you so much for joining us. And Lucy, I see you there too. So really appreciate you both taking some time to talk with us. So Dorothea made my day a few Sundays ago when I was reading the Seattle Times and I read her article, It's Time to Ban Student Phones in Washington Schools. So I'm going to start by asking you, yeah, there you go, you. I don't know if you can see the audience, but everyone's so thank you for clapping for her because when I contacted her, I got a hold of her. She said, "Well, I'm glad to know someone read it." So, yeah, there are people that read it. Trust me.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell me? You're a junior at Lincoln High School. Why did you write the article?
I think it was a combination of factors. So I was part of a student group for the Seattle Times, and the theme this year, it's called the Student Voices Program, was health and wellness kind of in schools. So it was a combination of thinking about topics related to that with, I think there's been a lot of national and state movement around cell phones in schools this past year or so, especially in legislatures and like making this something that's written into law rather than just policies that schools can implement. So I was kind of excited about that and was thinking about it. And then also, my school kind of attempted to ban phones this past year, and I just watched that go sour, I guess, and kind of just, it was this half-hearted attempt, and it was sad to me to see that and to see phones just really come back in full force this year in the classroom. So I was thinking about, yeah, what can we do about that? What are the next steps? And then Mark Elias proposed these two companion bills in the House and Senate that would have required school districts to come up with a plan. So I thought that was really interesting. And when I started writing my article, I didn't know that the laws would ultimately fail in the legislature. But yeah, that's just kind of what got me started thinking about it, was a combination of those things.
Got it. So let me go back. So you're in high school. Tell me though, when you said things go south, tell me what was happening in class or between classes or at lunch with cell phones. What do you mean go south?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the year, my school rolled out this new policy of having phone zones in every single class. They had this kind of strikeout system where you were supposedly going to be contacted if you were on your phone in class. It seemed like this year they were really trying to come up with a new system, and it worked for a little bit. And I really saw a difference in my classrooms. I think, as Katie was also talking about, when kids don't have that thing to fall back on in an awkward or slow moment, they just kind of look up and they talk to each other, and the culture of classrooms really changes. And laptops don't provide the same distraction that phones do. So even though we still had laptops, it really felt different. But just pretty quickly, kids fell back on phones, and teachers kind of got tired of spending 20 minutes at the beginning of class trying to enforce these rules. So it seemed like it failed really quickly, at least at Lincoln.
And you had, in your article, you had another, a quote from another student and also a quote from a teacher. What does that feel like to you then, to be in a classroom or to be in a school where phones kind of, I'll say, rule?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to put it. They really just take over. And I think I've struggled with it myself. I mean, when it's always in your backpack or in your back pocket or out on your desk fully, it's an addiction. You can't stop looking at it. And even I think the most kind of school-minded kids who really are there to learn and love their classes, as soon as they're bored or have a slow moment, they just reach for it. And yeah, it drives people apart. I mean, I think I have classes where I don't know everyone's name still this far into the year. And I think phones play a major role in that. People they text to meet up in the hallway during class. There's so many factors in the ways that they distract and interrupt classes, but it's a really major problem.
And one last question for you, and then I'll ask you, Lucy, some questions. What do you imagine? So you said it's time to ban student phones in Washington schools, and you directed that to the legislature. What do you see? What do you think would be different if there was an actual cell phone policy with, say, a physical barrier? What do you think would be different about your high school?
Yeah, I think it's a hard question because implementing it takes a lot of work and detail, but I think just having it written into law would give maybe schools the backup they need when faced with angry students and parents who are a little bit annoyed at the policies, to stick to their guns and keep with it and not give up as quickly, like what happened at my school, and have this thing to fall back on of, we have to do this, it's written into law, like there's no other excuse. And I think for me, that's why I thought the what Mark Elias was doing in the legislature was a really good idea. I don't know exactly how that would be written, but we're seeing it happen all around the country. I think there's examples to look at, and it's going to be an experiment, but to just give up on it isn't the right answer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We're not done with you.
Sounds good.
But let me go to Lucy real quick. So Lucy, you are a junior at Mercer Island High School. Thank you again for joining us. When you were a freshman and sophomore at Mercer Island High School, was there a cell phone policy?
No, there was no cell phone policy, no.
So tell me what it was like for you at Mercer Island High School, in class, between classes, at lunch. What was that like?
Yeah, I think in class was very variable. I mean, some teachers are much more strict about no phones out in my class, but other teachers just don't have a problem or don't feel like enforcing a no phone policy. So in a lot of my classes, you would see a lot of phones out and stuff. Particularly, you would see phones out in between classes, I mean, in the halls, and a lot at lunch as well. I mean, I distinctly remember seeing like tables full of people playing games during lunch and just not talking to each other. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of phones out in our school.
So that was your freshman and sophomore year. You're having a very different junior year. So what did your school do? What's different? And what
So
was their
they
approach?
Yeah, so it's a complete like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. phones away in yonder pouches. So no, not out during like off periods or lunch, etc. And so they really rolled that out over the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And their rollout was very interesting. They kind of started with this idea of why are we doing this, before going into specifically like yonder pouches and like beginning to end of school, stuff like that. But there was a real focus on why and why is this so important for schools.
And so when you think about then, I just want to clarify something too. Your campus is not a closed campus for lunch.
No,
So
you're
you
allowed to
can
leave.
you can leave and you can unlock your phone as
Yeah.
you're leaving campus. So it's a bell-to-bell restriction while you're physically in the building.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So tell me what feels different? What are some positive things that surprised you about
Yeah, I
this
think
year?
Yeah, probably the most positive surprise I had was just the change of like the social environment. Particularly, I would say during lunch. I think there was a lot of phones out during lunch, and it kind of restricted people's ability to talk to each other. You would see tables full of people just on their phone, and now that's just not possible anymore. And so, while there are people who obviously like sneak their phones and stuff like that, it's definitely gone down a lot. And so that socialization has really increased. And as well, socialization has also increased in the classroom. If you finish up with your work and you don't have anything to do, instead of just going on your phone, you talk to other people. And additionally, with that inside of the classroom, I think people are more productive because phones are such a big distraction. If you don't want to do the work or you don't want, or you're done with the work, instead of going and doing it or doing other work, just go on your phone. And so now that phones are fully away, people are just able to be more productive and more focused in the classroom because that barrier is gone.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I'm going to go to a few more folks and then we'll, in the room, Miss Mack and our principal, and then we'll come back. And I know there's questions for you guys, okay? Yep. Okay, sorry, someone's calling you kids. I hope you don't mind. Questions for the kids. Okay, Miss Mack, librarian extraordinaire. Thank you so much for being here. You've been at the school a while, right? So you've experienced how, oh, sorry.
You have to bring the microphone.
Oh, okay. I'm walking. No problem. Here I am walking to her. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. My Okay, 2011, you've been at the school. So tell me, you've experienced before a clear cell phone policy with a physical barrier of a pouch. You've experienced that, and you've experienced before that. Tell me what has changed from one year to the next.
Yeah, certainly there's always going to be students who try to sidestep, a rule. However, just like in the library world, the easier you make something, the more accessible something is, the more someone will do it or use it, right? So just like we want to remove all of the friction from checking out and reading a book, we want to create friction in how much time people are spending on their screens. And and although this is a cell phone thing, I mean, it's definitely improved. I don't spend the amount of time I did before trying to get someone to give up their phone. I think it's, any kind of phone use has gone more underground, but that means they're not pulling it out and arguing with the teacher in class about it. And I can tell you, because of similar challenges with laptops in the library at lunchtime, trying to get them to stick to academic use instead of, playing things they're not really supposed to be using it for. It becomes a game of whack-a-mole, and it's exhausting. It is truly emotional labor and mental load for a teacher who doesn't have something like Yonder pouches at their school, to have to just be on the constant lookout, to have to always feel like you're about to have a confrontation when you see one trying to hide their phone, and they're using it right there in the classroom. It I and It's difficult, and so I totally sympathize with teachers who reached a point where they're like, okay, I can't die on this hill. This is not a battle I am winning. I can't keep fighting this battle. I need to teach, not police phone use. And so anything we can do to reduce that with, all the technology that we use is helpful for keeping people focused and interacting with each other on a more human level without a screen between them.
So, thank you so much. Well, Dr. Marshall, when you first came in as our principal, actually, I'll go back a little bit further. My son was here 2 years ago. He came in midway through 6th grade. When he walked through the door, I said, look, there's a poster on the window, and it says away for the day. And later he reported to me that it's not really away for the day. They're out. When you came in, you had parents concerned about that. So you've seen what we were able to do with your support. Tell me your perceptions of before and after when you first got here, and then what happened after with a clearer cell phone policy as far as with your time and everything else.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I've been in schools where there was not even a way for the day, and it was madness. Kids were using the phones. We're talking about social emotional health. They were using it to talk about other students. They were using it to tease other students. They were using it to start fights and altercations. They were using it to videotape altercations. We would have to suspend them for automatically even doing that, because it becomes entertainment. So I've been at schools like that. Here, since being in Seattle public schools, the way for the day coming here was a breath of fresh air for me when you guys talked to me whether I was going to continue that. Yes. The only issue that between last year and this year is we were still chasing phones. But 6 times, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, students, we would confiscate the phones. It was taking up too much of our time. So as soon as we got the cell phone pouches, we're spent. I don't even really think I'm spent really an hour on it because the kids are. The expectation is you have the phone out. If we catch you with the phone out, we're taking it. There are no chances. Last year we were giving two. We had slips that you get 2 or 3 chances for. No, one time your parents have to pick it up. I have had parents lately say, "Well, we how can I say it? It is inconvenient for us to have to come out." I said, "Well, that's what it's meant to be. So your kids won't take it out." So they kind of understand that, and we lock them up. Also, I have some kids that come through if they forget their pouches when we're up in the Hawk's Nest or at the front door. Oh, they'll just the honor code. I forgot my pouch. Okay, that's fine. We'll take the phone and then we'll just lock it up in the safe in the office. So we even have that. So if you forget your pouch or you lose it, they're willing to get, rather than it being taken, because they know what the rule is, they'll just volunteer it, which is, we have a sort of with some of our kids, honor code. It's a culture shift. So our kids that are in 6th grade are coming in, they already know. So when they're rolling up into 7th grade, it's normal to them. It's our kids that are in 8th grade and the ones that are getting ready to leave. They didn't have it at the beginning. So as we move along with this, the kids that are coming in, since they're introduced coming in, the culture shifts. So it takes about 3, 4 years, and then it's an expectation, and it should get better and better. We do not have phones out in the classrooms. Yes, they do go in the bathrooms. We know that because they know that's a space where we don't go into, and they take it out. But when we talk to the Yonder representatives, they said you guys need to shoot for 80%. It's not going to be 100%. So that's what we shoot for. So it's much. We're not spending time. I can tell you, I don't spend time on phone. Hey, give me your phone. Or, the one thing that we need to do, I think, is probably get additional pouches just in case kids lose. I have a couple of them that have come to the office and want another pouch because they've lost it or something like that. So that's probably what we need to put in the budget for them, just some spares. But let's see how it goes at the end of the school year when we collect the older pouches. But we are not spending time on phones, not like last year.
All right. I don't think Miss Brewer is out there, correct? No. Okay. No worries.
That's the Roosevelt High School principal who wanted to join us and wants to move to Yonder Pouches. So I'm going to just do a really quick plug for the PTSA before we move into Q&A. And we have some great questions here. So the first thing I want to say is Dr. Marshall is a great partner for the PTSA. We've been able to do the Yonder Pouches together in collaboration. We've been able to have these kind of general meetings about tech and a tech team that is fully supported in this partnership. We've been able to do so much here in partnership that helps parents and the community, and we really want to continue this. So this is how you make these changes. Before Dr. Marshall came, one of the other problems we had was the monitoring of the halls. Kids were calling names, pushing each other down, spending all the time in the halls, doing all of these things. And the PTSA said, Dr. Marshall, can you help us on this? And immediately that went away that year. He focused on it because we said this is something our kids don't like. Kylie is in the audience here tonight. She was speaking to us and said, I think we can do more around social activities that make our students kinder to each other at school. And we said, we're kind of working on that with Hawk Day. Hawk Day is now institutionalized here. We do it at the end of every quarter. And the goal is to give kids opportunities to celebrate and interact socially. Our lunches with Yonder have gotten louder. So there are all these things we're hearing about and seeing. We as the community and parents play a huge role in making it happen. Okay, so we have a couple questions for Katie, but I'm going to start with the questions for the young adults. So, oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh yeah, the district has been in touch with this PTSA and has asked us to speak speak to them, speak on behalf of PTSAs, speak to other schools, and speak to what we were able to do here. Okay, so I'm going to start for Lucy. What about the bathrooms at your school? Do people use their phones there? And how does the administration handle that?
Yeah, I think people definitely do use their phones in the bathrooms. I don't think our administration is generally too concerned about that though, because I don't think it's become so big of an issue that people are spending like long periods of time in the bathroom using their phones. It might be like they go in the bathrooms to check their phone and like text their parents or something. Like it's a quick thing, so it hasn't become such a disruption that it's really an issue. It's you're not going to get to full kind of compliance, so you have to just shoot for the best that it can. And if it's not out in the classroom and it's generally not out, I think that's what is good.
Agreed. Thank you for that. And for Dorothea, are you in the minority of your peers with your view on phones? Do your peers pressure you or mock you for your views? And thanks for sharing tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say I like to think that a lot of people are in agreement with me and we just don't really like to talk about it. I mean, it's definitely an unpopular opinion, but when I talk to close friends one-on-one, I think everyone can agree that we recognize that the phones aren't good for us socially. Like we can see that, and there's inconvenience that comes with having to put them away. But I think, yeah, it's an unpopular opinion, but there are people that agree with me and do feel better without their phones. A couple days after the article was published, my math teacher did put it up on the board, and I got some not super pleased glances, I will say, but I think it's more of kind of a funny thing. And I think people see where I'm coming from, and yeah, there are people that agree with it for sure.
Thank you. I'm going to do one more question. Lucy, question for you. So your school is an open campus. Before, you could access your phone at any time in school, right? And so lunch wasn't some kind of anomaly where it's like I can use my phone when I'm passing between classes, etc.
Not really.
Now you've had since school started in August for Mercer Island to experience more of a connection with people, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I think there has been more socialization. Yeah.
But you have an open lunch, meaning I can leave and just binge on my phone for 50 minutes. Are you finding that, the pull of the phone is taking people out of school at lunch, or are you finding that connection holds people in the school more, even though they can't access their phone while in the school?
Yeah, see, I think people don't care enough about accessing their phone to like go and leave school to access it. I mean, it's like it takes a lot of effort in a 30-minute lunch to go and leave school and go on your phone. So I think it's not so much of a pull that people are like in droves leaving the school more than they used to. I think the lunchroom is still just as well as attended as it was. I think that's been pretty constant.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, this is for Katie. Do you know if law enforcement have published any statements nationally in support of phones away for the day to help clarify for concerned parents that students having phones during lockdown and calling 911 is not their responsibility and in fact causes too many calls and confuses communication channels?
Yeah, so NASRA, which is the National Association of School Resource Officers, has made those statements in the past. They make those statements every year, and nationally, the SROs that are in the schools or roving SROs that attend schools typically do parent nights and student assemblies and try to share that message as well.
Thank you. This is also for you, Katie. How should schools handle cell phones on overnight field trips where students are required to share rooms? The rooms are not supervised, and some students choose to contact strangers or live chat from their room, also on field trips.
Oh boy.
After hours
So
field trips.
I feel the same way about school field trips as I do about sleepovers. Nothing good happens with technology overnight with underdeveloped brains. So, one of my rules in our home is no devices behind closed doors. And so that carries over, in my opinion, at least to school field trips and things like that. I mean, the purpose of the field trip is to spend thousands of dollars to go do the thing, whether you're going to a state choir competition or you're going to Catalina Island, like whatever it is, we're there to be human. And so I do feel like chaperones can have children's phones in yonder pouches or however you want to carry them if parents are adamant that I mean, this is really a parent issue that I want to be able to contact my kid in case of an emergency. So if chaperones are going to hold phones and allow access in an emergency situation, great. But I do not believe that we need to have phones when we're going to do this thing, whether, again, we're ambassadors for the school and showing off our talents, or we're going on a 3-day overnight to explore something. I mean, we have to get back to common sense and being human.
Thank you. Yeah, you're getting applause if you can't hear.
Oh, thanks.
We just went actually on a JSU field trip here at this school, and the students turned their phones into the chaperones every night and got them back every morning after breakfast. And the students were responsible for charging them when they were handed in, and they were not allowed to be on them during any of the visits, like you said, just like you said, Katie. And none of the kids cared. None of the kids missed them. None of the kids asked for them. None of the kids defied the rules. Yeah, some parents here are a part of that. Okay, this is for Dorothea. At Lincoln, the student clubs use Instagram, and I don't know if that's true for Lucy as well, to communicate info about events. My student doesn't have an Instagram account and will be going to Lincoln next year. Any suggestions for handling this?
Yeah, I think that's a really hard issue. And a lot of student clubs do things that are slightly outside of the school umbrella, and it can be important to access that information. They try to put a lot of big announcements like Spirit Week, stuff like that, that's really school affiliated on Schoology. So reassure your kid that most of that stuff will be on Schoology and available to access. But yeah, I think there is a lot of stuff on Instagram, and that carries over to social stuff too. Your kid's going to want to be on Snapchat. There's group chats. It's all about kind of what you're willing to sacrifice. But I think there should be ways to find most of the most important information, and all the clubs are listed on Schoology. You can join them there. So you can also just go to the office and see a list. There's ways to go around it, I would say.
Lucy, what do you think from what you've experienced?
Yeah, I think it's the same at my high school. A lot of clubs use social media, but similar to Dorothea, like, yeah, there's a lot of information on Schoology and our school website that you can get the most major information, like club meeting times and stuff there, and then find the rest of the information elsewhere once you like know people in the club and stuff. There's a lot of ways to work around it.
And actually, Katie, just have a quick question around that. What do you think about when schools, on the one hand, we have documentaries coming out, Can't Look Away. We understand as parents the power of the addiction and the algorithms that are pushing content. We know that they're not safe. And yet, why are schools, how do we have that conversation with schools then? Why are you putting this on Instagram?
Yeah, I've had conversations with school coaches using Snapchat to speak to their student athletes. One of the things I would encourage people to do, our school uses Parent Square. It sounds like you have a similar app, Schoology. I would encourage you to have conversations with administration and to talk to your current administration about at principal meetings that these things are popping up in our PTSA meetings. Why are we doing this? We can have these different outlets, but we need to have a main channel that all people, including students, have access to, because it makes no sense when we're sending mixed messages that, you can only get the Stugo information on Instagram, which forces kids to then push on parents that I absolutely need Instagram if I need to know everything. And so I would encourage parents, as early as middle school to start talking to high school administrators. And then again, at principals meetings, having your champion principal that you have there, saying, hey guys, like, this is what I'm hearing from my stakeholders. Can we do a better job with this?
Thank you. Katie, when Katie was here almost 3 years ago, one of the things she said, and I do this, is children are not allowed to sleep with their phones in their room. There is a time they turn in their phones and they don't get them back at night at all. Those are turned in. Lucy and Dorothea, I'm wondering if you have something you would want to tell parents about phone use, and especially parents of 6th through 8th graders. We're still working on developing phone habits with our children, and we would what advice would you give to the parents? What do you think we should know? So not from thinking about your school, but from thinking about where you are now as juniors in high school. And maybe Lucy, you can start, and then Dorothea, you can go.
Yeah, I'd say I think developing habits early. I think if you go too overly restrictive when your kid is young, they're not really able to learn how to use their phone responsibly on their own. And so then when they go off, they're in high school or they're in college and they're trying to responsibly use their phone, it's more difficult because they're so used to so much restriction. So kind of slowly weaning off that restriction. I know that's what my parents did for me, and I think it worked pretty well, where you get a phone with a lot of restrictions, those screen time apps that only like limit your amount of time, and like turning in your phone and then slowly reducing that so that your kid can learn to build those habits over time on their own and they feel more natural for them.
And how about you, Dorothea?
Yeah, well, in my personal experience, I did have the screen time limits, and I think they did help, but also kids are really good at finding workarounds, and I was one of those kids. I think, yeah, no matter what you do, kids are still going to see stuff, still going to have content. So for me, it's just like, I think the later the better in terms of giving a phone to your kid. I had like flip phones or iPods to listen to music on my long bus rides. I think there's ways to kind of go around it, and I know I used a lot of different techniques to try to get my parents to give me a phone, and I'm just glad they waited a decent amount of time, because looking back, I never regret not having a phone, and I think you only regret having it.
Wow. Thank you both so much. And Katie, do you want to weigh in on that one for the parents?
I loved what Lucy said. That's what I did with my 4 teenage daughters, is incremental baby steps. We started with we didn't have baby dumb phones then. So I gave them an old iPhone with call and text only, and we did that for 2 years. And then my oldest, when she turned 15, she asked for Instagram, and we did that together. So I had her login and password. We did Instagram together. And then by 16, 17, she actually came to me at 17 and said, this is so dumb. I am spending way too much time on this stupid platform, and she deleted it. So for me, the sort of training wheels is certainly 12 to 18. And I encourage parents to start at 18 and work backwards. Like, what do you want that to look like? As Dorothea pointed out, kids, you can do all the things and your kids can find ways around it. And so I really think, incremental steps of trust. If your kid is not doing well in school and not sleeping well and things are tanking and behavior's not going well, then they don't get the privilege of technology. In our home, technology is a privilege, not a right. And I think when we hand phones over to kids at age 10, 11, 12, 13, they're like, oh, this is my phone. It's mine. And it's actually ours, and they're borrowing it. And so with that, at least in our home, it's a privilege.
Thank you so much.
Actually, Katie, I just want to tell a little bit more about when you said it's a privilege. Did you get a lot of pushback? How did you navigate that?
So we sat down and did a family tech contract, and we laid out, like, we are here to protect you. We're going to use Spark. We're going to have a central charging station. We're going to have a good router. Here's some reasonable limits. What do you guys think? They got to chime in. I really think it's important students have a voice in the use of their own device. If we're handing it over, we're doing this together. And so we didn't really get pushback in in our home. And I tell everyone that I see, I just name those 5 pillars of wellness: your sleep, your hygiene, your grades, your behavior at home, behavior at school. Like, those are just being a healthy kid. And if these things aren't in line, then you don't get your phone. You have to earn the privilege. And so my girls were pretty okay with that. It was kind of a standard of expectation.
No, thanks for that. Shall we ask if there's, what other questions?
Here, but I don't understand it yet. So let me just.
Okay. Anybody in the room? Okay. So if Lucy and Dorothea, could you describe your social media use? Is that the question? And how it might vary? What is that like for you as juniors in high school? Compared.
I think for me, I mostly use Instagram. I don't use TikTok or Snapchat that much, but I know most people in my grade will use like TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram are the kind of the big three that people use. And particularly Snapchat is more of the social platform. But I think that the vast majority of people will use kind of all three, at least in my school.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I see Instagram and TikTok as being kind of the entertainment platforms, and then Snapchat is mainly around messaging. For me, I started with a definite rule in my household of only being able to have one social media, and then I kind of graduated to being able to control it myself. And I got Snapchat, and then it instantly kind of felt like a chore to me, so I don't use it that much, but I definitely have it. And as people have said, unfortunately, it's used by clubs or to organize events. So it's definitely used in that way. And then Instagram and TikTok have the same function of kind of video scrolling, especially Instagram more recently. So it's not just about posting photos anymore. It's kind of become this all-encompassing thing. It has everything. So yeah.
Awesome. And there's a question on.
The question online is about restrictions on browsers here at Hamilton. And so we over the last 18 months or so, we became a pilot in Seattle Public Schools for something called Go Guardian. And then that allowed all of us to see the browsing histories of our children, those of us who piloted the program. And then the director of technology for SPS came here and implemented it fully this year for the first time. So Go Guardian gave the teachers the ability to see everything that their students are browsing. Now, like we heard from both the young ladies on the call today, the kids find their ways around Go Guardian, but when they do find their ways around Go Guardian, the teachers can see what is happening on their screen and can private chat them and say, get back to work or shut that down. So these are to you. So Miss Mack and Dr. Marshall, is there anything you want to tell us about Go Guardian use and the restriction on browsing on laptops?
So Go Guardian is more than just showing what someone's on. It's designed to enable the teacher to direct the lesson. So the idea is that if everyone is supposed to be doing Naviance, then you're directing them so that only Naviance is whitelisted, as it might be called, as opposed to something being blacklisted. So you can control their use during a lesson. And if they're working somehow around it, it's usually that they are not, their screen's not showing, and the teacher realizes, wait, why don't I see so-and-so's screen? And so, for example, we had an incident recently where a kid was logged in as his friend. And so that's why he wasn't showing, because he wasn't logged in as himself, but he got caught, and likewise, other tech issues can happen when they try to bypass it. We end up kind of discovering it because then they have problems connecting to the internet later and all that. So it definitely keeps them more on task and focused on what is being taught at the moment. Where it has not been a great solution is outside of the classroom. In the library, it's not really designed for the library, for example, because I'm not leading a lesson at lunchtime, they're all doing something different. And oftentimes they're on a game that's educational that they claim their teacher had encouraged them to do, like GimKit or and maybe Duolingo and things like that, or iCivics. And so then at a glance, it's actually gets to be really difficult for me to tell at a glance if they are gaming something not educational versus something that is. So it's not a great solution for me in the library, but it's an very important tool in the classroom during class time. Yeah.
Katie, who could there be a Hamilton rule of no laptops during lunch hour? Yeah, that's, yeah. I was just gonna say, so it's 11:30 in Miami, so we really appreciate you, Katie. And Katie does want to share one more drop of gold with us because that's how it always feels when she's here contributing to our community. And we also wanted to just ask one last thing of Lucy and Dorothea. So I'm going to pass the mic to Lori so she can manage these last three pieces here.
All right, Katie, bring us home.
I love that you realized it's late. I'm still on Arizona time, so you're good. So I have found with wherever I am, we hand over these devices and we do this really arbitrary thing where when we get frustrated or mad or our child does something we don't like or they fail a test or didn't do homework, we take away the device. And then when we're really tired, we give it back. And then they do something else we don't like and we take it away. And so I've seen a lot of families, including my own, sort of use devices as like a sort of a pawn in our parenting game. And so I would just ask parents to consider, if you want behavior to change and you're going to take a device away, you have to replace it with you. So if your child is failing math, that's a signal that there's no mastery going on and they need more time and help. Take device away, sit down and tutor in math. If their bedroom is messy, take device away, help them learn how to organize and time manage, right? I mean, we tend to take it away and you get a few days of good behavior and like, woo, yeah. But we need to replace it with ourselves and not allow this device to gain even more momentum and more strength because they have become, unfortunately, obstacles between parent and child, and especially 6th through 12th grade. There's so many decisions coming their way between substances, parties, having sex for the first time, possibly. Like you want that communication to be wide open and them to come to you with the really big stuff. And if we're dancing with these devices, I've seen a lot of relationships sort of deteriorate over time because of that.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Yeah.
Did you want to drop off and get some rest or yeah?
No, I'll stay. I'm
wanna
throwing
stay?
a rager at Miami.
Okay, that's right. You're on Arizona time. I just wanted to ask Dorothea and Lucy, could you comment a little bit on laptops at your schools? Are you using GoGuardian at Lincoln? How does that work?
Yeah, we do have GoGuardian at Lincoln, and honestly, it hasn't been a big issue or very much talked about this year. We all just kind of have it installed on our computers, and we're all supposed to use school computers, which is a big new thing this year, but people really just disregard that. And I don't know how GoGuardian works on personal laptops, but
explain that a little bit more. Sorry, I missed. So people bring their own laptops into
yeah,
Lincoln?
there's a rule to use school laptops, but it's not really heavily enforced. And then I'm not sure how GoGuardian works when you are using a personal laptop. If teachers can still see that, maybe Hamilton teachers can kind of weigh in on that. But yeah, it hasn't come up very much. I think people are kind of just fine with it. They don't really care, and teachers don't seem to spy on us very much or use it. So
Yeah, doesn't work on personal computers. Okay, unless you. Okay, got it. Okay, extra steps. Got it. Okay. What about Lucy? What about Mercer Island High School? What do you?
Yeah, I think there is something similar to Go Guardian. I don't exactly know like what the program's called, but there's a way that our teachers, I believe, can see our laptops and lock them on specific platforms. And yeah, we don't have any rules against personal laptops. And so a lot of people just don't really a lot of people use personal laptops in our schools. So like if they have an Apple laptop, they're able to access basically their phone and text on it and stuff like that. Um, but I think most of my teachers don't really utilize it that much, only if people are really being a distraction, they will. So I think it's just not a heavily utilized thing in our school.
Log into their SPS account on a personal laptop? Okay.
So just like at home, you can hear that.
Got it.
Mm. Oh wait, there's another question.
Apparently the browsers can be locked on to not allow browsing, which then the Go Guardian would work and you wouldn't have the workarounds because it's actually locked down except for the sites that are designated by the school. How come we're not doing that?
A few years ago, several assistant principals ago, we did have the decision with those on a tech committee, and I was there. We're like, well, yeah, why don't we just limit it all to Clever? Why is this even an issue? We have the technical capability. And we still do have that ability. And the district responded with, no, we don't think that will be equitable. And I think the idea was that my impression of that was that the district feels a responsibility to provide internet access outside of school for equity reasons. They will if a family cannot afford internet access, they are given a Wi-Fi hotspot still. It's a small percentage at Hamilton, but yeah, I was flabbergasted at the time, and I'm like, wow, they really don't understand that the privilege versus equity thing, I think, is actually being looked at backward because it's a more privileged family who has the time and ability to monitor their kids' use. When everyone's at work, nobody's able to be at home while the kid's on their computer.
That's also a home thing, not a school thing. So it would seem to me they would make the decision based on what's good at school. But here, Kylie's on this committee.
Yeah, there's two committees, but the one committee is Cascadia's committee, and they are looking. Sorry. So at Cascadia, they are completely on board with completely limiting the websites and all that stuff that is allowed. So when you're in a classroom, you can't just jump on YouTube and watch TikTok and stroll through that on YouTube. And so they want the teachers to request specific websites, and then the principal will review that and approve or deny. And I really don't see why there's any reason that Cascadia can do it, but Hamilton can't. On the city or the Seattle Public School Tech Committee, they talked about the workaround for equity being that you just have to have a computer or two in like the front office, in the library, something that has full access to the internet, but in a supervised area, and then you're golden. That's all you need to do. Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing to me to see that Sandra Mackey, the principal at Cascadia, was like, great, this is what we're doing. Done. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've heard the equity. Oh, so she's wondering how come Cascadia can make it happen, but the district says no. And I don't think, yeah. So I do not believe that the district is saying no. I think the district is saying, yes, there's an equity issue. So you therefore must have a computer or two available for a student who needs to be able to access the internet, and it can be in a supervised area. That is what I'm hearing from the ITAC committee. Yeah, I don't think the district is very good at communicating. Yeah. And then you can have that way in classrooms, the students can only access Clever or whatever like specific website that are whitelisted. And it is a small list. It does not have to be a big list. And it does not have to include YouTube, which is again, the new TikTok.
Okay. Katie, I had one more. You talk, I just am curious. You go around the country, you meet with schools, you talk with parents and students from all over. You see what's working and what's not working in schools. So I'm going to take you to North Clackamas School District in Oregon for a second. Okay, 17,000 student school district. It wasn't working, away for the day. So they rolled out a clearer policy with a pouch, a Yonder pouch. So in 6 months, they had to go back to the school board, and these were some of the percentages that they reported. Do you use your phone in class? Last year's student survey said 89% did. This year, 2.8% said they did. 31.4% of students report increased social interactions between classmates. 25.7% of the students reported increased ability to focus and learn. And 49% of students report more time for teachers and students to teach and learn. Those are huge numbers. I mean, huge numbers. So do you see that kind of benefit in other schools across the nation? What are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people that have committed to this, and going back to your discussion a few seconds ago, I mean, it really is about district leadership championing this whole initiative. Like sites can do it site by site and be pilots and spread the good word. I'm still sort of mystified after 22 years of watching this, why more leaders at the executive leadership level aren't just saying, this is what we're doing. Because when I roll into a district like I did today, my question is, how is the well-being of your students? How's your attendance and how's your discipline? So when I look at discipline, attendance, and student mental health and well-being, I'm looking for indicators in the environment that are impacting those things. And phones absolutely impact all of those things. And so when schools like North Clackamas commit to this, you have the data right in front of you that this works. And I think it's powerful. And those are the types of things that you take to school board meetings and say, this is a common sense approach. We know that discipline goes down when phones aren't around, social interaction goes up, attendance goes up, graduation rates go up, and academic engagement. I mean, your librarian said it beautifully, whack-a-mole. I mean, we have teachers leaving the profession because of this. So I think that right there is a case study in itself.
Thank you so much. And I just want to just acknowledge everybody, your beautiful faces up there that we're looking at. So Dorothea, thank you again. I was so impressed by your article. I can't tell you. I joked with her that it's like I kind of stalked you after that. I tried, I had to try to find her. So I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Lucy, it's a total pleasure to meet you. I have utmost respect for your principal and for you joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank
Katie,
you for having me.
amazing to have you again. Thank you for all that you've helped us learn. Ms. Mack, I can't say enough of how wonderful you are in our school community. Thank you so much. Dr. Marshall, thank you so much for your leadership in all this. We could not do this without you. You're essential.
And thanks to Lori for creating the tech committee. Thank you all so much. And to Molly and to Matt for tonight. Yeah. So those of you on Zoom, thank you for joining us. And sorry to keep you over a few minutes. Join the PTSA board. Be a president. Talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.